part of your crew.
So maybe you have
is
no
just
experience
the
with
best.
mods, and you're a little bit concerned about
People
downloading
say
a
I
third-party
need
mod
more
to your
hots.
game and ending up with a headless,
Writing
adoring
about,
fan with a
thinking
female
about,
body.
talking
I
about.
understand this
That's
concern,
grief
and it's a
right
very
there.
likely possibility, but I am
Back
going
to
to
work,
try to
then.
help you through this process so that you feel comfortable downloading mods to your game, and if you do run into these problems, you'll know how to troubleshoot them. So the first thing, let's talk about what an actual mod is. A mod is something made by a third party, someone other than Bethesda, even though Bethesda has been making mods. I mean, that's just the DLC in my opinion. But these mods are made by third parties, so they're not connected with Bethesda. And they modify the game. They can range anywhere from, say, simply retexturing a rock, or completely adding new quest lines, new locations, etc. So they can be either very simple or extremely complex. So right here we're looking at a hair texture mod. This just simply updates the texture of people's hair. This is a very simple mod. This is a type of mod that I would not be too concerned about installing on your game, as it's probably not going to conflict with many other mods unless you have another hair mod. And as far as this goes with mods, we can see some of them do cost money. There's these little blue check marks and then these little cog symbols. So the cog symbol means it is made by Bethesda, with like the little blue check mark meaning it's made by a verified creator. What does that mean? The verified creator, it means they have submitted work to Bethesda in the past, and Bethesda is approving of their work. Now, it doesn't speak to the quality of their current work, though, you know, having that good track record does say that they'll probably continue to be relatively bug-free. Now, as we get on here, how to discern what would be a trustworthy mod? First, I would say if you're paying for the mod, it is highly likely that someone at Bethesda or Microsoft at least took a look at it before you put a price up on it. Second, if it's coming from a verified creator, that means that that creator was verified by Bethesda from their past works and is likely knows what they're doing at the very minimum. Third thing I like to look for is how do they sign their mod. So we see these mod descriptions, they'll have a byline, but are they putting anything out there for you to communicate bugs and issues to the author? Some people will list in Discords, others will provide email addresses to report bugs to, and I've seen some where they will list out all their socials. Discord seems to be the most popular, but if there is nothing in the means of communicating with the author in regards to bugs, this is kind of a red flag for me. That means either the mod author neglected to include that, or they're not too concerned about the quality of their work and they don't really wish to receive that much feedback. So that is something I do look for when I am looking at mods, is do they have a byline, and like how are they signing their work? Are they giving us ways to get in touch with them? So this is something that is what I would say is extremely important when looking at mods, especially ones from non-verified creators. But let's go into this. Here we see the options menu here. Now from here you can update all the mods at once, and that is exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make you aware though, currently right now this is not working, so I'll provide you another method for updating mods in a moment here, but if you're catching this at a later date, this will probably be functional. Right now though, that little button to update all mods is not currently working. and you'll have to update them through a different means. But getting back to this, probably the means I know of to update it is essentially deleting the mod and reinstalling it. So here we're looking at the Adoring Fangirl. This is a mod by a non-verified creator. I originally installed it and it was not working like you saw in the first clip, but we're going to try and get it working here. So what I'm going to do is to update it, I'm going to delete the mod and then re-download its contents, and this will basically reinstall all the files onto the drive. So furthermore, from here we might want to adjust the load order. So how load order works, I will explain it to you. The lower on the load order it is, the more of a priority it has. Basically, if there is a conflict, the game is going to go with whatever is later in the load order. Now, there are certain mods you want towards the end of your load order. These are going to be the more complicated mods. Simple things like retextures you might want to have at the top of your load order, or things like a community patch. A community patch would be something you would want at the very top because there might be multiple mods referencing it. So that gets me onto that topic. If you do have a mod that is referencing another mod, like it's a patch, the patch should go after the main mod because it will be referencing that primary mod. So if you have a mod that references a community patch, it needs to go after the community patch, because if the community patch isn't loaded first, it won't have the information it needs to reference to do its job. So basically, the lower on the load order it is, the more priority it's going to have. But if it is a patch or references another mod, it needs to come after the mod it references. So if you are having difficulties with a mod and it's conflicting with another mod, you might want to drop the load order on one of the mods and understand that there's going to be a conflict and you might be giving up something. Like if you have two mods that modify the hair texture, and say one of them changes the color and one adds high definition, but they both seem to be conflicting with each other, you need to pick which one you want to go with. And that's just how it's going to be, because they're both referencing the same object. They're both modifying the same object. So that's essentially how this load order works. The more complicated mods, you'll see in my mod order here, I do have the Dark Star mods listed dead last, and that is specifically because I want them to take priority over anything else I have in here, because that is something that's adding a lot of enrichment to my game. So if there is a conflict, I want Dark Star to take priority over it, so that I basically list dead last. And then I typically have the like retextures up towards the top of the load order, and then you would have like community patches at like the very top. So this is just a basic guide. There might be some nuances where you want to mess around with your load order. I can give another example. Let's say there's a mod out there that retextures every guard in the game to be a stormtrooper. And let's say there's a second mod that retextures all the guards in Aquila City to be rebels from the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars. If you have mod A that retextures them all into stormtroopers first, and then mod B that retextures Aquila City guards into the Rebel Alliance, what will happen is you'll see every guard except for Aquila City dressed up like stormtroopers, with Aquila City being the Rebel Alliance. But if you reversed order on that, and you had that Rebel Alliance mod first, and then the Stormtrooper mod second, the Aquila City guards would be dressed like stormtroopers because the mod's coming afterwards and it's going to take precedent and there's going to be that conflict. But let's check on the adoring fangirl and see how this is working. So she seems to be completely reskinned, but she is mute. So we're going to go ahead and figure out what is going on with the sound. Now, this is going to get into the next diagnostic step I like to take in these mods, which is in the form of a Google search. Honestly, just a simple, plain Jane Google search. So I'll show you a screenshot from basically Reddit. This was a 5-minute Google search, and it did yield the original posting of the mod itself. And it explains essentially that the sound's not working due to Bethesda disabling a few file types that were causing audio to cut out for players. So until that's changed on Bethesda's end, this mod is not going to be fully functional, but you do get the reskin. It's mute, so you don't have the male voice. I don't know if I would recommend this for players. Maybe you have the adoring fan and you find him a little bit too annoying and you would like a mute adoring fan. There you go. So that would probably suit some players. So let's get into how to delete a mod. So from the creations menu, you're just going to go to your load order, and then from here you're going to wait for everything to reload, and then once it does, you're going to go to the infected mod or the mod you want to remove from your game. You'll hit Y to delete said mod. And then from there, you can either revert back to your prior save before installing the mod, or what you can do is you can just proceed without it and hope for the best, which is what I'm going to do here. So doing it this way, you could see some issues where textures might be missing from your game, whole entire characters missing from your game, etc. But that is probably not going to be the case. That's the worst case scenario. And you do get a little bit of a warning if there are some dependencies that require that mod. Like we're going to see the pop-up here because there was some things that are dependent on that mod in this save. And basically, when I do uninstall it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the damage. So I'm going to appropriately go and navigate this menu, basically to proceed without the mod and not re-download it. And then when I do get into the game itself, realizing that this mod modifies the adoring fan and only the adoring fan, I'm going to go specifically to him and make sure that his functions are correct. He's skinned, and he can talk, and I can navigate dialogue with him. So those are going to be the things I am checking for on the adoring fan. And I will say one of things you do need to be aware of, I'm not concerned about, is that anytime you're modifying your load order, the very next load takes a substantial amount of time, and that is because it is writing to your save file, so it's editing your save file. So be patient with that. Don't panic about it or get alarmed that it's taking a while. Some mods will take a very long time, that first load, and that's because it's editing the save file itself. But let's check out the adoring fan and see if he's okay or not. And there he is.
How do
He
you think
appears
this
to be
adventure is going?
skinned correctly.
Great.
He's talking
Fantastic.
like
A moment in
unprompted.
time will
Let's
treasure
check
forever.
the dialogue options
thinking
themselves,
all
and we'll
three.
make sure that they are okay.
Creme Terracino is my favorite.
There we go.
Terra Latte is also my favorite.
His dialogue
So
appears
is
to be
Terra
working
Brew
just
classic.
fine. Now, for this last part here, I'm going to show you a general diagnostic tip for resetting things in the game. Let's say, hypothetically, you load up and the basement of the lodge is missing. The floor's gone. You fall out into the oblivion below. One thing I like to do, and this is basically a general diagnostic tip, is travel to Venus and sleep. This will reset most things within the game, and I will explain further.
In space or the stars, but either way, I like it.
So, upon landing on Venus, what you're going to do is either find a bed or a bench, anywhere that you can wait time. Now, why does this fix it? It's because of the internal clock within Starfield. After so much time passes, all the objects are reset. At least all the objects that can be reset will be reset. So you don't need to do what I'm going to do up ahead, which is waiting the full duration that you can, but just explaining here, for every hour on Venus is 100 hours of UC time. So you can go ahead and work out the math of how long I'm waiting on this planet, but what this is going to do is it's going to reset all the objects around me. It'll reset doors, it's going to reset some dialogue. Some things won't reset, like if you're married to Andrasia, that's not going to reset. Story advancements aren't going to reset. But objects that can be reset will reset. This includes vendors' credits, vendors' inventory, and that typically happens with just 48 hours of passing. But waiting the full duration will reset. Anything that can be reset in the game will be reset. So I would highly recommend this as a general diagnostic tool for any bugs or defects you do have in the game. It will solve basically every problem you have. So let's review this real quick. There's a lot of different types of mods. They can range anywhere from like retexturing a rock all the way up to adding complete entire quest lines with new gear, new characters, etc. One of the things you do want to look for is the author verified? And then 2, how are they signing this? Are they leaving information for you to reach out if you do have a bug or a defect? Or are they just kind of leaving you out there to your own devices to figure this out? And then 3rd, there are ways that we can troubleshoot. We can address the load order, making sure, if there is a conflict, we're kind of picking and choosing what we want to be prioritized by dropping it down the list. Also, if it has a dependency, we may have to make sure that dependency is higher on the list than the dependent mod. Also, beyond that, we can always try deleting the mod and then reinstalling that and see if that fixes. And if we're suffering from things like missing textures or other things like that, you can always try sleeping on Venus until said bug refixes. And if that doesn't work, you might have to go back a few saves. So always saving before you install a mod is probably a good and prudent idea. And like always, if you found this useful, interesting, or you think other people should see this video, give me a like, a subscribe. Also, if you have diagnostic tips that you would like to share, please share them in the comments below. I'd appreciate it, and I always like learning about this stuff. And like always, please have a nice and enjoyable night. Bye.